Entrepreneurially Thinking is a presentation of BioSTL and CET, Center for Emerging Technologies, with Rare Gem Productions, changing the way you view new ventures, including you on the pathway to success with your business in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. Here's your hosts, Cheryl and Christy. Now let's get thinking entrepreneurially.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. Our goal is to energize your entrepreneurial mindset and create pathways for business success in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. I'm Christy Maxfield with the Center for Emerging Technologies.
And I'm Dr. Cheryl Watkins-Moore with BioSTL and representing the Inclusion Initiative here for our region.
Fantastic. We are so glad to be back and to have you all with us. We are fast approaching our year anniversary. It's hard to believe that the middle of September of last year, we actually put out our first episode and you all decided that it was worth your while to listen. In fact, more than 10,000 downloads and plays later, we are recording in the middle of our fourth season.
This is amazing.
And
it's amazing.
Trying to figure out what the next great story is to tell you all. So to that, we say thank you. We have had a ball learning how to do this podcast, meeting terrific people, stepping outside our comfort zone. And we likewise hope that you have had the opportunity to step with us, come outside your comfort zone. And if so, keep up the good work. If not, let us help you hit that tipping point so that you'll be inspired to take that next step and a big leap. So we're here for you. We're really thankful that you've made our show part of your busy life.
Yes.
If you haven't heard, our newest sponsor is Mueller Pro CPAs and Business Advisors. They've joined CET and BioSTL to help us bring this vision and inspiration to you, our listeners. You can find links to our sponsors at entrepreneuriallythinking.com and stay connected with the show on all of your favorite streaming platforms and social media outlets.
Well, you guys, you know, healthcare today is changing rapidly, and there's a lot of good things going on. We have technologies that are helping patients and physicians effectively manage chronic illnesses that years ago would have severely impacted and shortened the lives of those with illnesses such as diabetes, heart disease, and even cancer. Today, we are speaking with Virta Health, a company that is using technology, a treatment plan that is geared specifically for each patient, and a team approach that has been clinically demonstrated to reverse type 2 diabetes safely and sustainably without the risks, costs, or side effects of medications or surgery.
That's truly remarkable.
I was going to say, you all heard me right. Reverse type 2 diabetes.
We'll learn more about that just in a minute, right?
So in studio today, we have Dr. Jim McCarter, who's an MD, PhD, and head of research for San Francisco-based Virta Health. Jim is an experienced biotech entrepreneur. He's an adjunct professor of genetics at Washington University School of Medicine here in St. Louis, and an entrepreneur in residence with the Venture Fund BioGenerator that's also located here in St. Louis. He is the recipient of the Innovation Award from the Academy of Science here in St. Louis, which I am a board member. We're both board members.
Very good.
Congratulations. And our Crown Fellow of the Aspen Institute. This guy, come on.
And he's here with us.
Sleep?
We're really very humbled.
Right. He's an impressive individual, good friend, and a great colleague. We also have by phone Mike Halley, a Virta Health patient who will provide his perspective on this groundbreaking technology and treatment management system that has positively impacted his life. So if you have type 2 diabetes, or if you know someone that has this chronic illness, you don't want to miss this episode. This can certainly be a life changer.
Heck, if you're just interested in groundbreaking technology and really cool people, keep listening.
Absolutely. So as we always say, stay listening.
Now here's Make It Happen with Keith Sales Pro.
What do the most successful people do every day before 8 a.m.? Well, rise and shine. Love it or hate it, utilizing the morning hours before work may be the key to a successful and healthy lifestyle. That's right. Early rising is a common trait found in many CEOs, government officials, and other influential people. Margaret Thatcher was up every day at 5 a.m. And Robert Iger, the CEO of Disney since 2000, wakes up at 4:30 a.m. every morning. Here are 5 other things you must do. Number 1, exercise. Every morning, at least 30 minutes a day. Number 2, map out your day. Set your goals and priorities for the day. Number 3, eat a healthy breakfast and all meals when possible. Number 4, visualize the day. Meditation, prayer, or quiet time. And number 5, make your day top heavy. Put most of your workload at the beginning of your day when you're the freshest. Today, remember, it can happen. It will happen. And together, we will make it happen.
Follow Keith Sales Pro on Facebook or Twitter at Keith Sales Pro, or visit his website at keithsalespro.com.
It can happen. It will happen. And together, we will make it happen.
My name is Mike Halley, and entrepreneurial thinking is that it's all about innovation.
Mike and Jim, thank you so much for making time to join us. You're both very busy, and we're very excited to have this conversation with you. Jim, if you could get us started, Cheryl has given an impressive overview of your background, and if we would love to start off with you telling our listeners a little bit about yourself that we haven't already learned.
Right.
And how you actually got into entrepreneurship and what you're doing today.
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I'm from Chicago.
And yes.
She wins.
Outstanding. And grew up in various parts of northern Illinois and went to Princeton University and then came here.
New Jersey.
Gosh, 25 years ago. Okay. All right. We have overlap again.
We're really good. We're covered.
And have been in St. Louis for over 25 years. Came here to do an MD and a PhD at Washington University in St. Louis and never left.
Wow.
Yeah, and so why did I become an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Back in the mid-'90s, I was headed toward an academic track. I was going to do research. And I was just seeing that some of the people that I admired most were publishing great research, but it wasn't having an impact in the world. And I viewed startups as a way to have that impact. You can bring together a multidisciplinary team, focus on an objective, and actually make it happen. And so in 1998, I incorporated a company, Divergence, while I was still a grad student at WashU. That was eventually acquired, and many years later, I'm doing my second startup.
Yeah. That's exciting.
It is.
A lot of the folks we talk to within the biosciences in particular are on that tenure track, or they're on that
the academic,
in the case of physicians, the practice track, and entrepreneurship really feels kind of far afield for them. So, but you gravitated toward it naturally. Yeah. That's remarkable to me, just because we're always trying to bang that drum. Have you encountered other folks who have wanted to pick your brain about?
I'd say that
how to
in
do that?
St. Louis, it's so different now.
Okay.
That there's much more receptivity and tools and options for people to get involved than there were 15 years ago when I was doing, or gosh, more than 15 years ago when I was starting.
And you don't even look that old. I'm sitting across from him. He says 25 years in St. Louis. Are you kidding me? You look like you're like 30 years old. Okay.
Well, when you're in the lab and then you're creating things, I don't know, he doesn't get out much.
Right.
I'm making gross assumptions about your life, and I apologize.
But no, this is really interesting. So how did you get involved with, this is the second startup. How did you get involved with Virta Health? Tell us about Virta Health.
So about 4.5 years ago, I was looking at what my next startup opportunity was going to be, and I was on track to say, I'm going to start another company by myself. And I was particularly interested in this connection between nutrition and chronic disease. And this thing that's happened, and diabetes is a great example. Type 2 diabetes was not that common back in the 1950s and 60s. And all of a sudden, between 1980 and today, we had this just explosion.
You know why? Because of damn supersize. Everything you can go through a fast food place and supersize it, right?
But the point you're making is right. Is that it's environmental. It's not genetics. The human genetics don't change in a single generation, right? So something happened about our environment, either our food or the way in which we spend our time.
Yeah.
Something changed. And so now we're confronted with a situation where we have 30 million people in the United States with type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
And about half the adult population with prediabetes. 400 million people worldwide have type 2 diabetes. It's increasing in China. It's increasing in India. So
in places that normally you wouldn't see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've exported a lot of things, including some bad behaviors.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so, but this idea, and I come at it from, trained as a geneticist, that this is not a genetic problem. This is a problem of our own making. And if that's the case, then it should be a reversible disease. All right, so the kind of status quo that we hear from the medical establishment is type 2 diabetes is chronic and irreversible. And so, take your medicine and live with it, right? And if you're lucky, it'll get worse slowly.
Right.
Oh,
that's something
you'll slow the progression.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I started looking at this connection 4.5 years ago. Fortunately, I, about 2.5 years ago, connected with the founders of Virta, including Dr. Stephen Finney, who hasn't been just at this for 4.5 years. He's been at this since the late 1970s.
Wow.
And so rather than being the founder this time, I came in as the 6th outside hire, employee 6, but joined this all-star team of founders.
Right. Absolutely.
I think what's interesting is you picked a disease state that, like you said, it impacts a great number of individuals and can be costly not only for the patient, not just in terms of money, but time, their health costs. Because, having diabetes is a long-term. You can go blind. You can, lose limbs. There are a whole host of other costs associated with this disease, and being able to say now there's an opportunity to reverse that is huge, and not just here in our domestic market, but globally. Yeah. You can change people's lives like that.
And Mike, you're one of those people. How did you get connected with Virta, and what's it meant for you?
I was connected with Virta back in August of last year when my brother attended a conference in San Francisco and heard the Virta presentation, and he didn't even leave the meeting room before he was calling me saying, "Wow, this is not a yes or no. This is a yes. Right. You will do this." And I'm like, okay, well, yes, okay.
You must have. Are you the younger brother, or is that the older? No,
brother? I'm the older brother.
But he knew there were consequences worse than diabetes if he said no.
Exactly.
That's right. And so I had diabetes had it for 35 years.
Wow.
And have neuropathy in both my hands and my feet. Oh. And it brought a lot of concern to my family. And so when Matt heard this presentation, he said, this is something you have got to do. And so he didn't leave the meeting room before he had the phone number of Virta and who I should be calling. And so I went through the intake process and did all of my blood tests and all of the evaluation that needed to be done to be accepted. And so at the time, I was taking 300 units of Humalog, short-range insulin every day.
Wow. That's by injection, right?
By injection, right. I'd fill up a syringe full of the short-range insulin and then 100 units of the long-range insulin, which is Lantus. And then I was on metformin, and then I was on a drug called Jardiance. And my A1Cs were still 8.4, right? I was still looking like I was on compliant diabetic. Even
and for our audience, Mike, for our audience, so they understand A1C. Jim, do you want to just jump in there just to say what does that mean?
Yeah. So diabetes is a disease where you lose the ability to regulate your blood sugar or your blood glucose, and so you'll have high levels of blood glucose, and hemoglobin A1C is a way to measure that over time. So it'll give you kind of like a 100-day snapshot of how has your glucose control been over the last few months. And so anything 6.5% and above is considered type 2 diabetes.
Okay. So even with all those medications, you were still outside the range.
Yep. And my cholesterol was 320. My triglycerides were 524.
Wow. These are all not good numbers for everybody out here.
They're all pretty devastating numbers, even though I was taking statins and I was taking high blood pressure meds. And, I was doing everything possible to try to treat it, but it still looked like it was giving me the upper hand. And so with Virta, I was accepted into the program.
How long ago was that?
Of my life. Started on October 1st of last year.
Wow.
And so I've been in it just about 11 months. And but within the first 5 months of being on Virta, I was able to stop taking Humalog.
Wow.
I was able to stop taking the 300 units a day. And I just noticed that my numbers were really coming down at every level in that first round of tests after I had started Virta. And then I just had another series of tests, and I stopped the Jardians, which is they stopped me right away on that. I stopped the Humalog.
Wow.
I stopped the statin, and so at this point I'm just on a little bit of Lantus, 20 units a day. And
that is phenomenal.
Metformin. And so I can tell you that my A1Cs were 6.9 with no Humalog and no Jardian, and just a little bit of Lantus. And then my cholesterol went from 320 down, it's at 112. And then my triglycerides went from...
Talk to a few other people about getting on. What does it mean to be on Virta?
Yes.
Sure.
Well, what it really means is life-changing. Let me just tell you, I mean, as a patient, right, who has been going down the slippery slope of type 2 diabetes and watching kind of my body just starting to succumb to all of the nasties of it, it has been truly life-changing, because the other thing I didn't expect and didn't know would happen is that some of my nerves have started regenerating, and I have the feeling back in my hand.
That's
for sure.
transformational.
Oh, and my gosh.
Yep. And I have some feeling coming back in my feet, which I haven't had in 13 years.
And I'm sure with the nutritional program, because we're going to talk to Jim about what all is encompassed with the Virta Health system, because it's not just one thing.
And clearly it's not another pill.
Right.
No,
right.
It is not. And by the way, I've lost 50 pounds.
Wow. That's wonderful.
Do you have to have diabetes to get on it? That's all I'm asking. No, Jim says I can. Okay, good. Excellent.
Since we both love to visit all the restaurants.
Yeah, we enjoy a good meal, let's just say.
Exactly.
Well, I can tell you guys that my endocrinologist is so taken back with my type 2 diabetes reversal, because along with that was insulin resistance, along with that was metabolic syndrome. And my liver numbers, my bun has come back super strong.
The BUN these are numbers that reflect how well your liver is performing.
Well, the point that Mike makes
liver and kidneys.
That Mike makes is an excellent one, which is that so many of these things go together, right?
Yes.
So there was a doctor in the 1980s who kind of characterized this as syndrome X, now called metabolic syndrome. And so it's not just type 2 diabetes. It's also hypertension. It's also dyslipidemia.
All connected.
It's all connected. And we see this in the clinical trial. What Mike is describing in his personal experience is the same thing that we see with hundreds of people in the clinical trial that we've been conducting with Indiana University Health with 262 people with type 2 diabetes. And what you see is that in the majority of people, all the numbers move in the right direction.
Wow.
And I think what's amazing about this, just like what Christy said, this is not another pill. This is not some magic potion. What I like about Virta when I first talked to Jim about this was that it's a very holistic approach. It's incorporating your physician that you have. So it's not Xing out the medical staff that you're dealing with. It's actually incorporating these folks, bringing on an endocrinologist, bringing on a nutritionist. And I'm going to let you talk about this, Jim, because I think that's what personalizing the approach, having a nutritional plan, having all of these other team members involved really supports the patient in a way that probably has not been done before. So we're going to go to a break, and then when we come back, Jim, if you can talk to our audience about what is all this?
What is the clinical trial?
Yeah.
How does it work?
Yeah.
And then when is it going to be available for the rest of us? Awesome. We will be right back.
Miller Prost, CPAs and Business Advisors, is the proud sponsor of today's Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast, offering a full range of professional tax, audit, accounting, and consulting services. Learn more at millerprost.com. MUELLERPROST.com. Miller Prost, CPAs and Business Advisors, advising with vision.
This is Jim McCarter, head of research at Virta Health. And at Virta, we've distilled our version of entrepreneurship down to a few key values. But the one I'll mention is rapid iteration. And that means that we're testing and we're constantly learning from our successes and learning from our failures, and then repeating that cycle quickly. So to me, it's that nimbleness that's at the core of entrepreneurially thinking.
So, Jim, we were extolling, actually, Mike was extolling the wonders of the Virta program. And as Cheryl remarked, it's not about another pill. So what does this mean if it's not another pill?
Right. So there's really two innovations behind Virta. One is technology and one is science. And the technology is called continuous remote care. So let me talk you through that first. And then on the science side, it's really about individualized metabolic control, right? It's individualized nutrition. So let's talk about each of those things. So continuous remote care, what we provide with Virta, you can kind of contrast it with the current experience of, you wait to see your doctor and maybe you see him once every 6 months, once every 3 months if things are going really well, maybe 15-minute appointment if things are going well, maybe you get 5 minutes to talk about diabetes. And so based on maybe a total of 20 minutes over the year, you're supposed to figure out how to handle your diabetes.
Sure.
Right.
And so maybe you get an emergency room visit every once in a while, too, if you're not that fortunate.
Yeah. Right. So in contrast, Virta provides 5 things. First is a one-on-one connection with a physician through telemedicine. And secondly, so that physician does all the medication management. Second is a one-on-one interaction with a health coach. So that's your health coach that will stay with you through your Virta experience. And many of these people are dietitians or nurses. They have, that kind of training to really walk you through what you need to know. Online nutrition, behavior change education, biometric feedback, which really becomes important to get this kind of daily markers that keep you on track, and then a peer community, an online community of folks that are going through the same thing that can talk you through it.
So it's really how medicine is changing, because with telemedicine and remotely managing patients, that is key, but surrounding that patient with support.
Right. You should have the world experts in your pocket, right? Through your cell phone. There's no reason why not. Yeah, and that's the direction that medicine is headed. I think 15 or 20 years from now, this will be what everyone is doing. We're doing it today.
That's fantastic. So
what's the other side of that?
Yeah, so then the other innovation is really in the science and in the biochemistry. And the way that we think about this, as I was saying, that type 2 diabetes, we didn't have this problem, 2 generations ago. This is new. And so something's changed. And part of what's changed has been our food environment. It's our caloric intake, it's the distribution of those calories. And that has led to this rise of insulin resistance. For somebody who is insulin resistant, another way of saying insulin resistance is carbohydrate intolerance.
Yes.
Right? So somebody who's like my kids, young and healthy, can probably eat all the sugar and starch they want and get away with it, right?
Right.
But for those of us who are a little older
and sedentary,
we can't do that anymore.
Right.
And so what we do with Virta is we individualize your nutrition to make it work for you. So this should work for somebody like Mike, who's traveling all the time on business, or for somebody who is a stay-at-home parent cooking for a large family.
Or someone doing a podcast.
And juggle in 5 or 6 other things.
Right.
Yeah. So it's individualized for based on your food culture and your lifestyle, and then it's also based on your biochemistry. So we're actually measuring every day biomarkers to tell whether or not it's working. And if we're off course, we get you back on course.
I think what's so amazing is when you talk about carbohydrates, because a lot of people don't realize. I was reading because, I always look at, how can I maintain and I just had
enjoy what you like,
be healthy,
and
still be healthy. And it's through the carbs that we grab to fulfill to satiate hunger, and that's not good, because when you are eating carbs, and especially if you're hungry, you tend to overeat, and that is not what you should be doing. I was reading a book where it says that we should be eating the same way babies are fed when they're young, every 3 hours, having something to eat, either through cheese, yogurt, something like that, because it helps to stabilize your blood sugar, and you're not doing this, you're not spiking and dipping all throughout the day.
So for busy folk,
yes,
right, like you, Mike, this sounds like a lot, right? And the first reaction is like, I already have a full-time job, right?
Now
but you were already taking lots of pills and doing lots of things to manage your diabetes that weren't working. Mm-hmm. So how has making this change over the last 10 months worked for you? And, you know, what's been the most important piece?
Let me tell you guys, I mean, I am the first one to tell you that I had a case of voracious ravaginitis really bad.
You wanted to eat your arm off? That's usually how I describe it.
Yes. And I'm also an emotional eater, right?
Oh, so I've never heard of that. Yeah.
We don't know what that's about.
If you try to deny my food, right, or if you cut me from a meal, you might suffer the wrath of, Genghis Khan.
Understood.
And so the biggest challenge for me with Virta was overcoming my portion control and the overwhelming need to, eat everything in front of me and in sight. Yep. And really the key, believe it or not, is in fat. Because my coach, her name is Catherine Metzger, who is amazing. I would say, gosh, how can I curb my overwhelming appetite? I mean, I'm always hungry. And she's like, oh, just have like 1 ounce of cheese, or have a piece of beef jerky, or something that has some fat in it, and you'll feel fuller. And I was thought to myself first, oh, she's crazy. But
we've been avoiding fats, right?
I've
like
heard
they're the plague.
Right, you are out of your mind.
But
right?
It's true, right? If I had just like 1 ounce of cheese in the middle of the day at 3:30, I am not coming into dinner like wanting to rip everything apart, right? I come in and I am much more satisfied. I'm much more prepared. And look, you get to eat all the foods, at least for me, that I love. I love foods high in fat, right? But, you get more calories from fat. So you just don't eat as much, right?
Right. It's portion control.
But
teaching you how to eat.
Portion control.
Yep.
And it's really saying, you know what, I did feel full after that, 4 or 5 ounces of meat, or, those slices of bacon, or, I just happen to love chicken too, and, but I'm eating the chicken fat now, right? I'm not eating only the lean white meat, right?
That sounds wonderful.
I feel full.
So, Jim, talk to us about, you claim that your organization reverses, and this is big, guys, reversing type 2 diabetes.
Well, it sounds like it from how Mike is talking.
Absolutely. What evidence? Because I know you guys are clinical based. This is not, the infomercial at night at 3 a.m. telling you, here you go. You guys are clinical based and showing real results. Talk to us about that.
Absolutely, Cheryl. So I came into this out of, academic medical world, had published over 50 papers. My last startup was very, very science-based, had over 30 patent families, and, so I'm a kind of hardcore science guy. And I would not be doing this if this was late night infomercial. So, I was fortunate to connect with Steve Finney and Jeff Volek, who are two of the sort of leaders in this field. And 2 years ago, we connected with Indiana University Health in Lafayette, Indiana, and put together a collaboration to demonstrate that this actually worked not just for one person, not just for Mike, but actually in a large-scale clinical trial. And we enrolled hundreds of people in a prospective trial that is lasting over 2 years. And I'm right now furiously writing up the 1-year outcomes. We've already published the 10-week outcomes and have already put online the 6-month outcomes.
Wow.
And so we see that this works for the majority of people. So at 6 months, the average hemoglobin A1C has gone from 7.6 to 6.1. 76% of people are out of the diabetes range.
Wow.
We've discontinued the majority of prescriptions. We've eliminated or reduced 87% of the insulin prescriptions.
Wow.
Yeah. And people have lost on average 12% of their weight. And these are folks that are starting out with long-standing diabetes. They've had diabetes on average 8 years. And so it's not just people who are newly diagnosed. It's not just people who are pre-diabetic about to become diabetic. These are people that have been dealing with this disease for a long time.
What are the physicians that are not involved with Virta but have these patients enrolled in Virta? What's their feedback? They've got to be in awe at what you guys are doing with their patients. And what are the other patients' feedback? We heard Mike, but
Mike talked about how the endocrinologist that he was working with initially couldn't believe the numbers. Mm-hmm. That, Kaiser in California did a large study a number of years back, and they showed that their remission rate of type 2 diabetes was 0.1%. It was 1 in 1,000 people saw their diabetes go into remission. Endocrinologists can practice their entire career and never see a remission of type 2 diabetes. And so they should be skeptical. They should be saying, what?
Yep. Yeah.
You did what?
Right.
Yeah, and so what we're finding, though, is that people like Mike will go back to their doctor, and we will help communicate back to the doctor the experience of being on Virta, and we are slowly changing minds.
That's amazing.
So innovation, writ large, is, and in this case, is very disruptive. You're going to save some people a lot of money. You're also going to stop some folks from getting paid because they don't need certain things anymore. Where do you think you're going to have obviously the lives, individual lives like Mike are going to be the most palpable, but how do you see this from the business side of things evolving and making an impact?
Yeah. And Mike, I should say, you might want to jump in as you look at this from the point of view of Medicare and Medicaid, because I know that's an area of interest of yours and business-wise, but I'll just go real quick. In that we set up Virta as an online diabetes reversal clinic. We practice telemedicine. We're licensed to practice in 46 states. We have about 1,000 patients nationwide, including the folks that are in the clinical trial in Indiana. And we are working with self-insured employers. They are on the line for the cost.
They are. So
they're the folks that are bearing the disease burden, which is awful. But from the point of view of whoever's paying the bills, it's about $10,000 a year per patient more than if somebody were metabolically healthy. So that's the potential value creation. And we're going to employers, and we have several employers working with us now. The one that we've announced publicly is Purdue University.
Oh, great.
In Indiana, they had folks in our trial. They saw our results. They said, wow, let's make this available to all Purdue employees and dependents.
They would be foolish not to, right?
Absolutely.
Because they see the results.
Yeah. And the way we've set up contracts with folks like Purdue is that it's value creation based. So if we don't succeed, we don't get paid.
So it's a shared risk, shared savings.
Absolutely.
Model.
That's the way medicine is headed.
Yep.
And so that $10,000 delta is really what we're trying to close here. And some might look and say, continuous remote care, 5 different components, and then you complement that with all the other tailored, customized interventions. That's got to cost more than standard care protocols. And I look at you skeptically shaking my head. And Mike, tell us. So, oh my gosh, was the reply.
Oh my gosh, you guys. I'm telling you, because my insulin regimen, my medication, my Humalog was $3,500 a month.
Wow.
The Jardiance is $1,000 a month.
Wow.
But I ended up with a Charcot foot, which is a product of diabetes where your foot shatters, all the bones in your foot break. And I was in the hospital for 7 weeks, and that was $120,000, right?
Right.
And so I'm just saying that it's, the dollars behind this, because I work in Medicare and Medicaid, is tremendous, right? And it's a tremendous shift.
Well, it's a benefit for, like you say, employers, because you're helping to maintain a healthy employee base. You're bringing your overall insurance costs down. Like you talked about, Mike, your overall out-of-pocket costs for medications have gone down tremendously, and your increase in health and wellness has gone up significantly. So it's really, a win-win it's a lose-lose for diabetes, but a win-win for the patient and the organization. This is, I think, when we talk about, I love the way what you said, Christy. This is groundbreaking, and it's changing the whole dynamic of how folks get treated in our communities here. And what if you guys didn't hear this, Virta is available no matter where you are.
Pretty much.
So you can be in 48 states.
We'll be in all 50 by the end of the year.
Okay.
There you go. Wherever you are. And for our international listeners, I'm sure they'll be
find ways
global.
to find you.
Right. So this is, I think, when we talk about innovation and entrepreneurship, this is really living that whole disruptive model, coming up with something very, very different. But I love this whole integrative approach that you guys use to really support that patient. What's next for Virta? What are you guys looking at? What's on the horizon after this? Because, I mean, with these clinical trials coming out, we're not going to be able to talk to Jim anymore.
No, I know. We're very lucky to have found time with both of them.
So what's next
two things.
guys?
So for me personally and our team of researchers, we are cranking out publications to share these results with the world. We'll have probably 12 papers that will come out of this groundbreaking clinical trial. For the company overall, boy, it's been a rocket ship. I, as I mentioned, was joined as the 6th hire. We now have 70.
Wow.
70?
Yeah, including 3 in St. Louis, in addition to a whole, set of folks, computer programmers and designers and folks out in San Francisco. But it's a lot of what we're doing now is about commercialization and scaling. Our co-founder on the business side, Sami Inkinen, had built a company called Trulia, which revolutionized the real estate market. Business. Yeah, and so he knows something about how to take a company to scale.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And on the IT side, you guys are using artificial intelligence as part of your technology platform too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually hosting, if folks happen to hear this that are out in San Francisco, on August 31st in the evening, we're hosting a machine learning session with 2 of the data scientists from Virta, along with 3 outside speakers from Stanford and other local entrepreneurs.
Very cool. Very cool. So you guys are using cutting edge technology to track, manage.
Yeah, we have these wonderful people like Catherine that are our health coaches that Mike mentioned, and I'm super proud of her. I hired her, and so I get to see her.
Yeah.
The fun of seeing one of the people I hired succeed. But we have to leverage her, right? We have to make it able that she can help not just Mike, but help hundreds of people, right? And so there's underlying software and systems and data science and machine learning that are behind that.
We only have actually, we're really out of time, but I'm still going to ask one more question. This is really great right now for those folks who are self-insured. And Mike, you're on the side with Medicare and Medicaid. How long do you think it takes a revolution like this to trickle down to some of the sickest, poorest people in our community?
It's a good question. Yeah.
That's going to take more time. I mean, legislatively, it's a very cumbersome process. But I can only tell you guys that it will. People take notice of this stuff, right? And I always say healthcare is 1 degree of separation. And so, the more that this gets exposed and the more of those papers that come out, the clinical trials, and I mean, the more that people have exposure to managing diabetes without insulin and having that option. And not having the effects of diabetes of insulin, because I'm telling you, insulin is no joke either, right?
Yeah, right.
And so not taking it anymore, you feel so
well. The costs are going to, I think, move this revolution along fast, because when you're looking at Medicare and Medicaid and the cost that they have to cover patients with type 2 diabetes, it's astronomical. And it's one of the top 5 diseases, I think, worldwide, right? That impacts folks. So when you start looking at these papers coming out, because you can't argue with data. I mean, it's really hard to argue with that. It's just a matter of a legislative approach.
Yeah, Mike's right. It's got to reach everyone. And I should say today that in addition to working with employers, Virta is also available, virtahealth.com, as direct-to-consumer, direct-to-patient. You can apply online. And we do have a patient assistance program.
That's wonderful.
Fabulous.
That is wonderful.
So can you say that website again for us?
Sure. virtahealth.com.
And Virta is spelled V-I...
RTA.
Yes.
Excellent. Mike, can you share your final thoughts with us?
And the last thing I want to talk about in terms of the technology is the app that's on my iPhone.
Yes.
It has an interface to the scale, a Bluetooth interface. So when you step on that scale, it comes right up into the app. I mean, the technology is amazing. And
that is amazing. You guys have surpassed the Fitbit. My Fitbit right now is just telling me get up and move 50 steps.
Yeah. So, but Mike's right. Is that's the thing about feedback. It has to tell you something actionable.
Right.
And so I had a Fitbit for a while. I don't happen to wear it right now because I kind of learned what I needed to learn.
Right.
With Virta, we're measuring not only weight, but we're also measuring fat metabolism. And we can tell on any given day whether somebody is successfully burning fat or not.
Wow.
They need to know that.
Yes, because then it makes you alter what you're eating, right?
Go ahead, Mike.
That's right. And I just was going to say, I cannot thank Virta enough for getting my life back.
Oh, that's great.
Well,
it didn't look so rosy there for a while, but it's looking much better.
Well, and we're really just thankful that you took a little time out of that precious life to spend with us and to share your experience. The message I hope our listeners take away is if you need this technology, it's available today. And go find it. If you need evidence that it works, you have folks like Mike to turn to. And if you're in... it sounds like just about any space, but interested in doing something that's revolutionary. There are companies like Virta out there every day looking for you. You don't need to be a geneticist. This is about how this is going to help connect the technology that's in your pocket to the technology that can save lives. So whether you're looking at computer programming, design, marketing, sales, all sorts of fields will intersect with this technology, and it sounds like there's probably some growth opportunities as well. So this is a really exciting time to be involved in this field, this company, and this work. So thank you all. Thank you both for coming and being with us. And we're really excited to watch your progress and be healthier with you.
Back. Yeah, we're going to have you back and
happy to do it.
To follow up with Virta Health and with Mike.
Yeah, Mike, a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mike.
If you're ever in St. Louis, please stop by and visit.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Changing the way you view new ventures, igniting your thinking about entrepreneurship. It's entrepreneurially thinking. Get connected and discover more. Visit our website for show notes, resources, information about our guests, upcoming events, and of course, all your favorite episodes. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them for us in the comment sections, and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The best way to show love is to share. Let everybody know that you're thinking entrepreneurially. So visit our website, entrepreneuriallythinking.com. #ETHINKSTL. Entrepreneurially Thinking is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening.